Hello, hello, hello. It's Crafty Chris here for another Scrap Your Scraps Thursday night. Tonight we are going to be making a one-page layout, which could also be expanded into 2 pages, from a sketch. Now this sketch was by Mayuki, and I found this on scrapbook.com, so this is not my own design, but I'm using my own scraps to create it. Now, there, of course, was no measurements. It's just a sketch. So I've sort of gone about uh, figuring out what size I want things to be. So if we assume that this is a 12 by 12 page, I figured out that each of the strips are at least an inch wide. I do not know how long they are. That's what we're going to figure out on our first layout. And I figured out that the circles were 2.5 inch and 1 3/4 inch, more or less. I mean, you have to play with the numbers, right? And that the 2 photos were 3 1/4 by 5, or not the photos, but at least the mats were 3 1/4 by 5. And I'm figuring that this banner here is about 9.5 by 3. It is, it isn't, who knows? And then of course you need a title as well. So after we've done our first attempt at this layout, I'm going to try and see how many I can do in the hour to 2 hours that we share together. It's fairly quick and easy, and literally if you have punches and a cutting board, you should be really quick at doing this. The first one I'm going to do, I want to do sort of a wintry family day layout. That's at least what's in my mind when I'm looking at my stack of colors here. The biggest, hardest part about doing a sketch is picking your colors. So I couldn't decide. I have 4 sets of things I think go together, and it's just a matter of playing with them with each set to figure out which ones really do go with it and which ones don't. On my first one, I'll get this out of the way so we can talk about my picks. I'm going to move these out of the way as well so that we can stick to one at a time. So I have a piece of craft as my base here, and I chose the craft because I've got some beiges happening in some of the red pieces. And this is going to be a red and gray blue layout. So I've gone through all my scraps and picked out some sort of vintagey looking reds and some different kinds of grayish blues. So we're going to start with that. Now the motivation for doing this color line came with this stripe. I really liked it, but obviously it's not big enough to go from end to end. So I think this middle strip is probably going to be a 12 by 12 strip. Now, I've said that, but don't forget that underneath here, you don't actually have to have full strips. You can have half strips. So if I divide this, I can have it as the center strip going through, or I can have it in 2 smaller places depending on how I want to see it. So the first thing I'm going to do is sort of lay out my background colors and see what works in my brain in terms of the strips. So where can I put this? I think what I'll do is I'll put the layout here. Alrighty, now, so I want to branch a little bit off from that. The bigger pieces I've chosen, I'm thinking of in terms of the mats. So I'm looking at this blue-gray to be these large mats, or maybe even the background stripe. So I'm not going to play with that in terms of getting it into my colors. This was kind of a fun thing, and I thought that I could put that in a couple of places, but it also is bigger, so it could end up being a mat because my mat is 3.5 and this is 3 3/4, so I could really do 2 mats with this. So I'm going to put that aside for now. I do have a number of other options for paper to use, so I could use, you know, a piece of that. Let's get all my blue grays out. So I've already used this piece. I'm just going to play around. This is small, so I thought it could be one of the circles, so I'm going to stick that aside. Again, smaller pieces for circles, perhaps. And that could be one of the two mats. I could have two different mats, so we're keeping that aside. Then I have this grayish blue paper that looks like stone I can put in a couple of places. I thought this pattern was kind of fun. I don't know that I'd put it beside that one, so maybe I'll shift everything and put that maybe up there. I can repeat my patterns. I can have every one be completely different. If they're all different, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different patterns I need to have. So I'm kind of looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's say we double up. These are small pieces for some kind of decor or the ends. Let's see. This is a little too blue. I'm going to put that aside for a minute. So let's say we start with our pattern there. So we have 1. This is 2. And let's say 3. This is 4. And I have them at an inch. I think I can make that work. This can be 5 and 6 on either side. 7. Can throw that in again. 8 and 9. So I actually have enough to do 9. So let's see how that plays out. All right. Let's put our first piece diagonally. And we're going to trim these all down to 1-inch strips. So get the cutter out. Now that's if I do it all blue. I just realized something. I pulled out reds as well. Hang on. Let's kind of get a play on what's going on here. All right. So I was thinking something like that, right? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Imagine that as thinner. I'm actually not loving that too much. So let's play a little bit more. Now, what if I add some reds in here? So I have this interesting one that could be one of the stripes. And then that's too short because I don't think that will fit in. I could have that in. Or I could do two different layouts, reds with blue mats and blue with red mats. You know what? I'm going to try that. Go back to what I had before. I want this twice. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I need to have 9 pieces. So I'm going to have to play with them. Okay, so that's my story and I'm sticking to it. We're going to do one set that has grays. Sorry, I'm dropping little pieces of paper everywhere. Grays with red mats and then red with gray mats. So, okay, now I know what I'm doing. So let's figure this out. So I'm going to trim the white off of this because none of this is actually really white. It's kind of a creamy background, which is why I chose the craft as my paper. So I need 1 inch of this. There we go. And this is a nice white strip that I can use again, so I'm going to keep it. So there's 1. This needs to have 1 inch. And because I'm not a huge perfectionist when I'm cutting and things, I'm noticing that when I go back to my cuts, oh, that's fun. That's a neat little strip as well. I find that my previous cuts maybe weren't the best they could have been on some of these papers, so something to keep in mind for myself. Going forward, be a little more careful with the cutting. So the paper's another strip that can be used. So we'll go 1, 2, 3. And these are both 1 inch. I'm going to hang on to that one and put that in the red pile because that might be something that will connect them if I do a 2-pager. And I think I only want one of these because this is not my favorite paper. So I'm going to put this strip back, keep this strip. So how many do I have so far? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This I'll do 2 of. Now, hang on a second. Could that be a mat? 3 1/4. Oh, that might be a good mat. So, do I bring this guy in and put that one over there? See, this is the quandary. This, if I have something on it, is going to be harder to see than if I have something on this. I'm going to keep this as a mat. Just double check my measurement. It is exactly 3 1/2, and I need 3 1/4. So I think I'm going to keep that. And this is the one we're going to for. So there's one. And there's another one. All right, so let's sort these out. Oh, and I want to trim this guy too. Now he's in a different direction than the other one I have that looks similar. I'm not going to worry about it. I think I don't mind at all that they're in opposite directions. Alrighty, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How did I end up with 8? I think I'm going to have to put this one in again too. There's 9. Alright, it's the only other paper that I had that was big enough. There we go. So there are our strips. Now the other thing I want to do is get my mats cut, because I want to make sure that when I'm organizing things like this piece I know I'm going to have to cut and split, I want to make sure that it's going to go under a mat. Now this is where I pull out the reds to figure out which one I might use for a mat. So this is a good mat. That's a little bright. And that's not as bright, but it's still pretty aggressive. These are too small. Get my small pieces out of there. So I have 2 that are almost, I think, the proper size. So I think I'm going to stick with these. These guys are going to be my mats. And I have to cut them down now into, according to my map over here, it says they need to be 3 1/4 by 5. So Doesn't really matter. I think I'll make 3 1/4 long cut first so I can use this piece. And this piece is 5 1/2 inches. So I'm going to stick that in my stuff to save. And 5 inches. There we go. That's still a decent piece. I'm going to keep that. So there's one mat, 3 1/4. Times 5. There we go. So there's my second mat. So I've got 2 mats now. Okay, so now I want to make my circles, and I don't have a 2 1/2 inch punch or a 1 3/4 inch punch. So I am going to just use the circles that I created by hand, and I'm going to make my circles, which are 2 1/2 and 1 3/4 inch. Now, I am thinking that the banner that goes through the back, okay, I'm going to make the banner that goes through the back out of this paper. So let me do that one first, since I still have my cutter here. And it is going to be 9 1/2, more or less, by 3. So I'm going to do a 3 inch cut. Crummy paper cutting. 3 inch cut. I obviously did not use my guillotine on that. That can go back. And by 9 1/2 inches. There we go. This piece goes back in my stash. Alrighty, so that's the piece that's going to go behind. Now the other thing I want to think about is if I'm going to distress any of this. I think I might distress this so that it picks it up off the back. Alright, so let's kind of take a look at how things are maybe going to lay out. So 1, 2, 3, 4. One, 2, 3, 4. That one goes down the middle. One, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to have to figure out how far between they are. Something like that. With my piece that goes through the center of the page, I'm going to cut that. Remember, this is going to go from corner to corner. This isn't exactly completely accurate. And these two pieces are going to go like this. So far, so good. And then I need my circles. One of my circles is going to go up here. Another one of my circles is going to go down here. And of course, my title. I think I'm liking it so far. There we go. Alrighty. I'm going to pull my camera out just a tiny bit more so you can see everything that's going on the page. There we go. Alrighty. Good enough. So now, let's cut these circles. And I think I want to cut them out of a red. And I think I'm going to cut them out of this love paper. Let's see how I like that. So if I put these guys here, and then this poking its head out of there. Yeah. So I'm going to make it out of the love paper, both of them out of the love paper. Okay, perfect. So a little bit of work to do. I'll shove you guys all aside for a minute. Okay, I'm going to trace on the back side of this paper with the pencil and try to line it up as close to the edge of the paper as I can. So I use the paper and I'm just tracing my template, and I will cut it by hand with a pair of scissors. So there's one. And I want to scooch this in as close as I can, because you never know what I'll use the, whoops, I shifted, what I'll use the rest of the paper for down the road. Okay, these guys go back on my ring. So I have a ring that has all these interesting size circles that I don't own a punch for, that I often use. And there we go. I even have a teeny tiny, that's 3/4 of an inch, that circle. Alrighty. Trimming, small cut, small scissors, large cut, large scissors. And move the paper, not the scissors. So you get a nice line. And when you're hand trimming, you might need to go in and finesse it a bit to make it look nicely trimmed. That looks good enough to me. Yep. All right. Nice thing is when there's a pattern paper, you don't see whether or not your circle is completely round or not. There we go. A little flat on one end, but when you turn it over, you don't notice. So there's my two circles. These I don't keep. This I'll keep. Alrighty. And what did I have to do? Yes, trim out this guy, and I'm gonna, okay, so trimming out this guy. I think I want to trim out 1/2 inch. So I'm just gonna eyeball 1/2 inch. No, yeah. I'm just gonna do it. Oh, look at that side. I'll have to figure that one out after. So I'm going about 1/2 inch up, sort of center. Could have used my longer scissors on this one. Oh, completely went offline there. So I'm just going to adjust it. There we go. There we go. So there is my edge. Just going to bring it over to this side. You can do this with big papers, not so much with little papers, because with little papers you end up making a fold, and you don't want to make a fold. Okay. And there we go. No piece left. Okay. Alrighty. So there is my ribbon. Now, I know I'm going to stick this first piece down. So we're going to get everything out of the way. We're going to have to eyeball. And this has not a very nice end, so I'm just going to trim it so it's a nicer end. There we go. I'm going to cut it in half. I don't even know, it's at 10 and a half, so 5 1/4. There we go. I got 2 pieces. Now I know that this is going to go about there, and these 2 guys are going to go about there. Actually, you know what? I think I will glue. No, I won't. Just going to take some repositionable tape and just hold it together so I can do some measurings. So let's see, we're going to have it about 3/8 of an inch. We don't need a lot to show. Something like this. Okay, and we're going to put that, do it this way so I can see it. A little more light. And I'm going to stand up so you'll notice the sound has changed a little bit. Okay, so that's going to go more or less central. And I'm going to get my 18-inch ruler. This just helps align things. So I'm going to put that there and drop it down to that corner. So there we go. That's the line that we're working on. And we want to have it go into the corner as much as possible. So this can go there. And that can go there. So we have well more than we need. All right, perfect. So that's going to be perfect. So now, you know what, I'm a little bit afraid of this. So I am just going to take that line and my pencil and kind of line things up. And I'm just going to draw a light line so I can see it at the bottom. And you can't see the beginning of my line because it's off the bottom of the, there we go. And I'm just going to give myself a 1-inch measure so I can give myself a guideline. 2 dots, all I need. So when I'm gluing it down, oop, there we go. Just so I have a bit of a guideline, I'll show you what I did up close. So I just gave myself the line that goes more or less through the center to the bottom. And then I gave myself 2 dots, which give me 1 inch in between. There's the 2 dots. So that I can align these guys as close as possible And I'm going to give about, I want about a 1/16 of an inch all the way around. So why don't I put that in? Actually, 3/16 of an inch is what I want to do all the way around. Now I know on the opposite corners it's going to end up way more than that. But at least on these corners, 3/16 of an inch. And these are just, these aren't things that you necessarily have to do. You can eyeball everything, but I'm becoming aware that because this is diagonal, I think I need to have some control over it. There we go. There we go. And I'm just going to do that all the way around because I'm fussy today. Today I'm fussy. Depends on the day. 16ths. There we go. One more, just for good measure. 3/16 top and bottom. There we go. All right, just a couple of guidelines. Okay, back to what we were doing. So let's flip this around. Okay, so now I want to stick these guys down. And get my adhesive out of my bag. And again, I have a broken adhesive, so it's going to be a bit of a challenge, but not too horrible a challenge. You just work with it. And don't waste it. These are old adhesives I had lying around in my cupboard. Alright, so I'm making sure that I'm going between my two dots here and here and aligning with my 1/16 of an inch or my 3/16 of an inch, just to make sure that everything is straight and that I have the same amount of space at the bottom as I will have at the top up here. So I'm going to flip that around, find my other piece. And the only reason I'm really worried about it right now is because this piece is too short to go the distance. So if it were longer, I wouldn't worry so much because it would be closer to each other. I would probably still have to cut it in half, but it would be closer. Okay, again, aligning with my 3/16 of an inch at the bottom here. And getting it between my little dots. There we go. So it looks like it's one continuous piece. All right, there we go. We've got our first piece down. And I feel like we're crooked. All right, now let's decide what our other pieces are going to be. I'm just going to put this back. Yep. See how it just masks the fact that that piece is not a full 12 by 12 piece. I'm very happy with that. All right, now let's figure out how the rest of these are going to go. This little guy is going to go up here. This guy is going to go down here. This guy is going to go there. This guy, let's put him here. Let's put that guy there. This guy here, and then this guy here. Okay, so now we need to do a little bit of measuring. I'm going to put the end pieces in first, down at each end. Those pieces are going to be in first, and then we'll figure out the space between this piece and spread these three in there. So that's going to go to that side. This is going to go to this side. All right, now I know that this is going to be larger than the space we have at the top, and I'm okay with that. So I'm thinking I want a piece that's going to be, my little ruler, two and a half inches. I'm going to make this 2.5 inches and that 2.5 inches. So get my little cutter. Two and a half inches and 2.5 inches. I can cut these both at the same time if I'm careful. There we go. Both those pieces I can save for another page. And now I have my two beginning pieces. So this one is going to go there and this one is going to go here. Now I have to make sure that I am making it parallel to what I have going on here. Oops. So if I give myself that 3/16 of an inch border, and I'm going to align I'm just using the bottom line and messing around with it until I figure out where this piece is going to live. Okay. So I'm going to put a piece of tape there. Just a teeny tiny little piece. Doesn't have to be sticky, so I'm just going to unstick it a bit. And I got to get it aligned with my lines again, because I'm trying to make it parallel without doing any math. So this is 5. And then let's see, 5 to 9/16. 9/16. Whoops. Nine sixteenths. So that is parallel. Now what do I do? Just flip that over. Oops. Get some adhesive on the back. line that up, 5.5. The first one is super important because if it's not straight, everything else will be out of alignment. So 5 7/16. Okay, I'm going to take a risk that that's good. Okay, and I'm going to eyeball it just to give myself... See, I think these are out of alignment, even though I went to all the trouble to make sure that they weren't. They are. That's annoying. Well, they're parallel, at least. All right. And I just need a tiny bit more on that corner. There we go. So it'll stick down. Awesome. Okay. Then the next one. So we have these three that we need to now put in between. And I'm just going to lay my ruler across. Use your tools, Chris. You got them, use them. So that should be the real deal. There we go. And now we can play here. So that's 5/16. Okay, so I'm just gonna crazily do some eyeballing. And some double checking. So this is 9/16, not 9/16. Okay. So I'm putting these in approximately this is the hardest part. So if that's 7/16, then that's 7/16. That's not going to work. So 3/8. Let's try 3/8. 3/8. 3/8. 3/8. Oh, I'm just a bit short, but that's okay. So 3/8 of an inch I'm putting in between these. So I'm just going to mark my line. Three-eighths is right about there. Right about there. Another very light line. So let's put this guy down. Now this guy is going to be just slightly short of that margin, so I'm going to snip him somewhere in the middle. Let's just double check with our piece that we had ready to go. Ooh, good thing I checked, because in the middle would not be good. So probably about 4 inches down. I'm going to snip. There we go. And I'm going to put align the paper with the edge. And I don't need this on here anymore. Then I'm going to flip it back and forth so that I can work with it. So there's the edge. There's my line. Okay. Oops. Painful to watch me glue things down. Okay. I'm going to flip this around. Line it up with the edge that I measured. There we go. It was just a very small amount too short. The next one should be fine. So I'm probably going to have to trim this one. So let's measure our 3/8. So 3/8. It isn't 3/8. It is 5/8. Pardon me. So the distance between here and here is 5/8. So 5/8 and 5/8. There we go. Line those dots up. Draw a little line. Get the next paper. We have to do some cutting. So let's see where we need to cut. Line it up on the paper. So this is where we need to cut. Get the little trimmer. find our mark. And there it is. Oh, a little tiny bit more. It's hard to see that pencil in the reflecting lights. There we go. Keeping this for another one. And now this is ready to fit in there. Beautiful. First time doing something is always off. You learn as you go, so that the next time you do it, you already know what you're doing. And it's much quicker. And I probably will not be able to do too many of them, but I will have that at the end of the video so you can see the results. All right, lining up here, lining up here. Perfect. 5/8 again. And 5/8 here. There it is. And again, we're going to have to measure. Get it back into screen so you can see what I'm doing. There we go. And actually, I'll do it this way. There we go. I have lost my mark. Let's try that again. Oh, I found it. There we go. This goes back in my stash. And now, adhesive on the back. Line that up. There we go. Awesome. So there we are. Now, I've taken license with the size, so the next time I do this, I might do more than an inch. I think I'll do 1 1/4 inches to get it tighter, because I think I want that tighter look. This is quite open, but I mean, I had to eyeball it and figure it out without any data, so this will be fine too. And now I'm going to just erase the lines on this side of the page. There we go. So I don't forget. There we go. All right, now I'm going to flip it over. And it should be the same. Where's my little piece that's supposed to go here? 2, 3. There it is. So again, I'm going to grab my ruler and just line my ruler up. There we go. And make sure this is parallel. And get my little piece of tape. So this is 5. Five and 3/8. And hopefully it'll be 5 and 3/8. Good. Okay. So it is 5 and 3/8. It's not 5 and 3/8. It's 5 and 3/8, but I have a little tiny bit here, so it should be 5 1/2. So from here to the edge of that paper should be 5 1/2. So we're going to measure it just to make sure we have it all down there. Five and a half. Five and a half. And now we're going to glue our paper there to match those lines. And 5 1/2. Sorry, gotta double check that. Five and a half. Make my lines a little bit obvious, more obvious. Five and a half. There we go. Whoop. So this is going to stick here. Wait a minute. There we go. Don't need those dots anymore. Okay, so then that's the second paper. It seems to me not to be very straight. But it is. Okay, there we go. Too much measuring. I don't like this. All right, and now we do, I'm pretty sure the 3/8 is going to work because from here to here was, oh, different. Oh, that's because I've got this. From here to here was 5 1/2 as well. Okay, so if we've done this right, our measurement of 3/8 or 5/8, I think it was, yep, 5/8 should work going across this way as well. put our first one in. Gonna line up our ruler. And do our 3/8. 5/8, sorry, not 3/8. 5/8. Take this out of the way again. Okay, very light line. And this one is going to be fine. It touches perfectly. Just a little off. So we're going to have to trim that again. So making sure our top is here. If we put this in the center. What am I doing? It's this way. This in the center. About 4 inches down again. There we go. Okay, touching it on this corner, making sure it aligns with the line. There we go. Oh, it's easier just to do that. There we go. I'm going to turn this around again so I can align it. There we go. Just the same amount on top and bottom. So that's a good sign. Don't know how I ended up scratching the paper there, but somehow I did. And then we're going to do 5/8 again. 5/8 again. Our ruler. This should be fine. Oh, we have to measure how much we need to cut off. There we go. Right there. Trimmer. Once you got the pattern, it's easier to do all the lining up. And lining this up. There we go. Beautiful. trim off some of this plastic so it doesn't get stuck in anything. And again, we're going to do our 5 3/8. Not 5 3/8, but 5/8. Should listen to myself talk a little bit more so I don't confuse you. There. And we'll measure how much we have to cut. There we go. Trimmer. There we go. Oops. And line it up. Perfect. All right, there we go. Now we're going to erase this side. And just along the bottom here. There. All right. So there we have it. All nicely organized. And it looks pretty good, actually. Pretty even. All right. Now, we're going to put this guy down in the center. I am going to slightly rough up the edges of this using my distress tool. Oops. Actually, maybe I'll just show you what I'm doing. So I'm just putting my paper in and running it through the tool that gives it a nice distress. This is white core paper, so it shows up really nicely. And I'm not sure which side, so I'm making sure both sides are good. So now I've got a distressed piece of paper. All these little bitty bits are what I was putting into the garbage. Swipe that off. All right, now we can put our paper back down. And see, it shows up a little better on top. Now, do I want the dot side or the plain side? I think I like the dot side. So we're going to put that in the center. Oops. Okay. I don't go right to the end because I tend to turn up the corners. I'll show you what I mean by that. So, to make sure that I'm covering everything. All right, so we are going in the center, more or less. Okay, pushing that down for now. Now I can scrape the core on these as well. Yeah, I think I will actually. So we'll do a little more distressing. In that corner. There we go. Get rid of some of the excess fluffy stuff. There we go. These guys are ready to go. And again, sweep that off my mat into my garbage. Okay. Now we'll pull these two together. So I'm wondering if I want to pop dot these. I think I do. So we're going to get our pop dots, which seem to have gone missing. So I'm going to grab my double-sided tape. Now the tape that I have, my double-sided pop tape, is 1 millimeter. The standard is 2 millimeters, so I have the choice of doubling it for 2 millimeters, which I think I'll do because I want to pop these a little bit underneath as well. So I'll pop these as 1 millimeter, and all I'm going to do is take this, fold it over, tear, and I have now a 2 millimeter piece. So I'm going to put that on the back. Now this is the piece that is going under the top one. So I want it to come down. I want it to be about 1/4 of an inch there and just slightly overlap. So now I'm going to go for 1/2 inch there. So it's going to go about 1 inch in. Maybe I need to bring it a little more. About 1 1/4 inch in. So I'm counting dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dots in. 7 dots in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dots in. About 1/2 inch up. There we go. There's the first mat. I'm going to go around and do the second mat. And on the one long side, I'm going to move it in slightly. Okay, now this side. So it's going to go down. There we go. All right. I'm just going to curl the ends of my ribbons because I like to try and get a little bit and now I'm just going to put thin dots for these guys, like only 1 millimeter as opposed to the 2 millimeter. There's my other one. There we go. Okay. Ooh, sticky on my fingers. So the small one is going at the bottom, and it should slip right underneath the corner. Oh, it says to slip over top of the corner on this one. So I do need 2 millimeter. So I might make it 3 millimeter. So I'm doubling up a little bit more. So I have 3 millimeters, so this one pops above. Come on, there we go. So it's going to pop above this corner. And then the other one, which is 1 millimeter, will slip underneath. There we go. So this will pop above that corner. There we go. Okay, and this one will slip under because it's 1 millimeter thinner. It will slip under this corner. There we go, but it's still popped up from the background. So you can see that it's sitting there thinly popped, very thinly popped. All right, and now I just need a title. I have some gray blue letters and some red cardstock. I think if I put the letters just on the background, it won't show up as nicely. So I'm actually going to put the letters onto the red and then trim it very close so there's a bit of a border, and then put it on the actual layout. So this is going to be called Family Day. So I'm literally just giving myself a 1/16 of an inch around the letters. Okay. The nice thing about these cardstock letters is you can move them around a little bit. And then the bad thing about them is you have to sometimes seal them. Now I'm noticing I don't have another Y, but it's all good. I'll show you what you can do to get that Y. You can take an X. It'll be a different style than your Y here. I think that's the only letter you can really do it with. Yep. So you're going to take an X and you're going to trim off the lower right leg to give yourself a Y. Like I said, it's not going to be in the same style, but it will solve the problem. And if you don't like the two different Y's, you can put this guy back and take two X's. so that your Y's are the same. All right, Family Day. And I think just because I can, I'm going to put an exclamation mark. So I am going to take one of my I's, or I'm going to take a J, trim off the bottom of the J. This does not have any numbers or anything, so I'm making it up. And then I've already got an L trimmed here, so I'm going to trim it again to get me the bottom of the dot, the dot on the exclamation mark. There's a special name for it, but I don't remember what it is. If you do, please trim this just a little more. Go. There we go. Put a dot at the bottom of that. Oops. And there we go. Family Day. All right. Now, I am going to seal that once I've trimmed it out with a little bit of glossy accents because I don't want it to fall off. And knowing these letters like I do, they will fall off. There we go. And this piece is going back in my stash. All right, now, glossy accents. This will not dry right away, so I think I'll put it on my page. So I can just put my page away. Just going to put it at the bottom there. And remember, there will be a photograph there, so the red will be reduced significantly. Do I want to pop dot this? No. But I do want to make sure there's, whoops, a lot of adhesive on it so that it doesn't curl and bend. Whoa, that's not a good thing. Okay, that should stick it down pretty good. And I just want to see where I want to put it. I can actually tuck it in there. Line it up maybe with the bottom. that look about right? It's not bad. Okay, now glossy accents. And literally, I am just putting it all over the whole thing. And this is to make sure the letters don't fall off. Try not to move too quickly, because if you do, you might end up with bubbles. There we go. All right. Now if you look at that, it's nice and smooth. So the idea is to lay this someplace flat so that it will dry and it will go completely clear. Right now it's a little bit whitish. And you'll see at the end of the video, or at the beginning of the video, when I use this as the beginning video, that it will be nice and clear and shiny. Alrighty, so now I'm going to take you through the remainder of the pages I want to do. Now we're going to make a second page with the red and the blue as accent, the grayish blue as accent. So after the first one, I've decided that 1 inch is too small. So let me grab my original, excuse my arm. So I actually would like to increase the size of this to 1.5 inches. Is that going to work? Everything is 1.5. Yeah, 1.5 inches. So I'm going to see if I can make my strips 1.5 inches. You see that is drying up nicely. This is the one we just made. All right. So I'm going to take my paper and start the same process, but I'm changing this to 1 1/2 inches. And I think I'm going to use most of what I did before. But with the strips at 1.5 inches. So as you can see, the process is exactly the same. This is the piece I'm using for my mats. And now I'm sorting to decide what small pieces I'm going to use to create my background. At this point I haven't cut anything because I want to make sure I like the balance of color. So now I'm trimming down all the pieces to that 1.5 inch size. And any of the offshoots I get that are usable, I usually, 1/2 inch is about as small as I usually go, unless it's a very interesting piece of paper, in which case I will keep a 1/4 inch strip. And now, in the same way that I planned out the other layout with the 3/16 of an inch border and the center line, I'm actually drawing all the lines in this time so that it's a little bit easier for me to walk through it. And now I'm laying out the pieces that I've cut down to make sure that everything fits. I'm putting together my photos so that I can plan where my cuts need to be in order to get them to spread across the page. And then I decided I should sort of have the background to the photos in there too to make it easier to plan those cuts. And I'm just making sure I like the balance. And now I'm cutting the pieces down. In the same way that I laid out and measured the original pieces using my ruler, I'm now using the line I drew instead to make sure everything is parallel. And as you can see here, I am about to put all the pieces in to figure out the spacing. It should be about a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch. I think it's an 1/8 of an inch. Pieces of paper fit perfectly, and just to make sure, I put together the actual size of the background to the photos to make sure that my cuts were not going to be a problem. To erase the lines on one side as I go so that I don't forget to do that. Now I finish off my ends of the background to my mats. So now I attach the background of my photos onto the paper in the center, and I pop dot and attach the photos on the background. And these again are just doubled 1 millimeter to make 2 millimeters. Now the next process is figuring out what I want to use for circles. I even considered maybe changing the shape at this point, but I kind of like the circles because everything else was so linear. And I decided also at this point to add a second circle on the dark gray piece because I felt it was just a little too plain. After cutting the gray piece, I ended up putting one of the red pieces on top. I put the gray piece flat and pop dotted the red piece on top. And then the final red circle, I double layered my pop dot to 2 millimeters so that it could stay on top. Okay, so here we have 5 finished layouts, all based on this stencil or this layout sketch, which again I got from scrapbook.com, an artist called Miyuchi, and so there's hundreds of sketches out there, so it's just what you decide to do with it in terms of your creativity. Your paper, leftover papers, what you need it for is totally up to you. So keeping in mind this sketch, and we're off. So this was the first one that I worked on, and I walked through this one with you. We did some investigation around, how much space to leave between, and made some changes in the second one. I've kind of just put some white paper there so you can see that that red piece that we had there doesn't really stand out as much as it did without the pictures on it. So that's the first one we did. And this is the second one we did. We started this together, and I think I finished it on my own. I don't remember. And we increased the width of the papers, and still again, great, same size photos, same size circles, except that I added an extra circle on this one. I didn't distress it in the same way I distressed this one. Otherwise, pretty much the same. And then this is one you haven't seen yet. This, I did quite a few changes. I made larger photo mats, and I put the stripe piece going up and down, still the direction, oh yes, and I changed the direction, so instead of going from right to upper left, it goes now from lower left to upper right. So just a couple of same circles. Same idea, except I had everything touching with no space in between. So there's another version. In this one, I added 3 photos instead of 2 photos. I took that centerpiece that ran through the center of all these previous versions, and I dropped it and made it wider, so I have more room for a title at the top. Same circles, 3 photos, and this one I did edge to edge from bottom left to top right. And you have to be careful with this, because if you have directional paper, you want to make sure the paper reads and things aren't upside down. And so this is the finished layout. And this one is kind of nice because it's got a little bit of metallic in there, but not too much, I don't think. So there's another layout version. And then this is the last one I did of this set. And the pictures are your sort of standard 3.5 by 5. I wove the background both left and right diagonal, and highlighted some of the red that was in the mint colored pattern to create these circles that kind of pop on the page. So this, as you can see, I've got a theme for color. This one was a mint color. This one was more of a turquoise. This one was a dark turquoise. This one was a red with the blue accents, and this was blue with red accents. So you can mess this around in so many different ways and get so many different layouts that people won't even recognize them as being the same thing in your album. I would put a page or two in between each one, just so that it doesn't become like an album of nothing but this particular pattern. But otherwise, that's it. So I hope you have enjoyed this inspiration, and it's given you an idea of the ways you can use your scrap sketches, and I will see you next Thursday. Oh, I should say, if you like this video and you find it inspiring, please subscribe to my channel, click the like button underneath the video, and tell your friends. Thank you. Bye.